Okay, this is a little chance for you to do a little practice. So if you look here at the top, we've got 4 names. Turn them into formulas. And at the bottom, there's 4 formulas. Turn them into names. These numbers should really be subscripts, but the program doesn't like subscripts, so that's what they should be though. So what I would do is go ahead and pause this and try them out. And then you can hit play, and when you hit play in a minute here, we'll go over them. All right. Okay, let's start going over these. So, first thing I do before I figure out how to name them, I'm going to categorize these things so I know what method I should be using here. So, to name them, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out that if I look at these, I've got an acid. Well, that's the easiest one because it says acid, right? I've got a molecular compound. Now, the molecular compound, I noticed that because I see the word tetra. Another clue is that if I look, I've got 2 nonmetals. Silicon and fluoride are both nonmetals. So that means this guy is molecular. And then for my other 2, I've got, I believe both of them have metals in them, nickel and copper. So those 2 guys, since they have a metal, they're both in this middle section actually, the transition metals, that means that they are ionic. So we're going to name them using those procedures. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the molecular one, I think, because that's the easiest. For molecular, the prefix tells you how many you have. So if you don't see anything, that's like 1. So you have 1 silicon. Tetra means 4 fluorides. That's it. Done. All right, now for an acid, we have to remember our conversion. Us goes along with ite. So phosphorus acid contains phosphite. Now, as far as what does that mean? Well, phosphite, if it's an ITE, hopefully that's going to be a polyatomic, and on our handout, and it is. It's in this middle section. I'm sure you'll have to look at your own copy to be able to read it, but it's right here in the top. And it tells me on my handout that phosphite is PO3 with a -3 charge. All right, now what else do you always find in acid? Well, you always find hydrogen. Now, not just 1 in this case, because hydrogen's +1. So we got to get those charges to balance, which means we're going to need another couple hydrogens, actually. And now we should be okay. Let's put it all together. You get H3PO3. All right, that's an acid. Okay. All right, now for the ionic ones, again, for ionic ones, we have to worry about charges. We got to get a balance, but before we even try that, we're going to have to write the symbols. So copper is Cu. The Roman numeral is telling me the charge. Ide is an element. It's phosphide. Now for that guy, the charge you can figure out by your periodic table. It's -3. Now again, I'm not too happy now because these charges aren't balanced. If we get another phosphide, that would give me 6 negatives, and we can get 6 positives with a couple more coppers. So putting it all together, you use 3 coppers, 2 phosphides. I think there's your answer. All right, now for the next one, we got a metal again. We got nickel, and again, it's giving me a Roman numeral, so that's the charge. If you don't see a Roman numeral, it would be one of our always and forevers, and you could figure out the charge on your periodic table. All right, in this case, though, it tells me nickel. It's got a +2 charge. Now it says nitrate then. Oh, actually, I might have misspelled it there, didn't I? But it should be nitrate. So if it's nickel nitrate, nitrate is a polyatomic. It's NO3 with a -1 charge. All right, so 8s are polyatomics. Now, if you look at this, again, the charges don't balance. We need another nitrate to get it balanced. And you put it all together then. So your final answer should be NiNO3 2. All right. All right, now you had a couple where going the other way around, so let's go over those. Um, so for ones where you're going the other around, acid, or is it molecular or an acid, or is it an ionic compound? So if we look at these, this first one again, I see two nonmetals, nitrogen and fluoride. That makes it molecular. The other one that stands out to me is this one starts with H. That makes it an acid. The other two contain metals. Chromium and lithium are both metals. You can find them on your periodic table. Lithium's right here, chromium's right here. If you got a metal, that makes you ionic. Alright, so again, I think the easiest one's really the molecular one, so let's start with that one. So all you do is you take those subscripts, and those you can turn into prefixes. Dinitrogen, and then for 3, trifluoride. Now you notice the second element should be ending in "ide." Okay. Let's go ahead and do the acid next. So for the acid, you have to use that conversion thing. S is an element. In other words, it's going to be called sulfide. Ide, because it's an element. And ide turns into hydroic. So that means it should be hydrosulfuric acid. Hydroic. Ide and hydroic go together. So you notice there's a little bit more of a spelling change, but that gets you pretty close at least. Alright, for the ionic ones, for those you write the name of the metal. So that's chromium. Oh, let me erase that, I made a little mistake there. That's chromium. Write the name of the nonmetal. O, an element with a negative charge. That's going to end in ide, oxide. Now, the last thing we're going to have to do is figure out whether we need a Roman numeral. And I think we do, and I know that because if you find chromium on your periodic table, it's not an always and forever. It needs a Roman numeral. Alright, so for the Roman numeral, let's see, we'll have to figure it out. Maybe I'll do it over here on the end. So I'm going to list everything again, break it back apart, and the Roman numeral is the charge on the metal. Now, what's going to help us figure that out is to know the charge on the nonmetal first. Oxygen is -2. I listed it 3 times because of that subscript. So what's the charge on the chromium have to be? It's got to be +3. Otherwise, the charges wouldn't balance. So it's +3. Alright, our last one is another ionic compound. So we'll write the name of the metal. Lithium. And then I see a few atoms there. I'm starting to recognize these polyatomics. There are a few atoms. SO4 is a polyatomic. It's on your handout. It's right here. It's sulfate. It's not just one atom. It's a bunch of atoms I see there. So that's a polyatomic. Now I think in this case we don't need a Roman numeral because if you find lithium, lithium isn't always and forever. It's right there. So you don't need a Roman numeral. Okay, so those are your answers. Dinitrogen trifluoride, chromium 3 oxide, hydrosulfuric acid, and lithium sulfate.